All right, everyone. Well, we are going to go ahead and get started just because we're on a time schedule and want to respect the time of our speaker, Julie, who's very generously joined us today. So let's go ahead and launch into this. Thank you very much to all of you who've joined us for this really exciting opportunity to hear Julie Parks from American Girl speak with us and talk a little bit about all things American Girl doll as we celebrate 35 years of this really iconic and illustrious company. Before we get started, I'm just going to introduce both of our speakers. Of course, at any time throughout the session, feel free to leave a comment in the chat if you'd like to ask a question. We will have a dedicated Q&A period at the end, so you can feel free to message your questions directly to me or certainly leave them for everybody. Whatever you prefer works just fine, and we will make sure we get to your questions at the end. All right, so first I'll introduce our moderator today. Molly Samantha Dedmond is the Client Services Coordinator at PBA Galleries. Named for not one, but two American Girls, she comes to PBA from the world of letterpress printing and fine bookbinding. She will be speaking with Julie Parks, Director of Public Relations and Corporate Communications at American Girl. Julie directs the communication strategies for American Girl and generates awareness, enthusiasm, and goodwill for the brand and its various product lines, programs, and experiences. She also oversees the company's corporate philanthropy efforts, and with more than 24 years at American Girl, she has extensive knowledge of the brand's 35-year history. So welcome, Julie, and Molly, feel free to take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Maggie, first of all. And Julie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I thought we'd start with just a little bit of background and talk about who is Pleasant Rowland and how did American Girl come about?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. A lot of people want to know more about Pleasant Rowland, who is the founder of American Girl. I had the really good fortune, because I've been at American Girl for 24 years, I had the really good fortune of working with Pleasant for a few of those years. Actually a year before the sale of American Girl to Mattel, and then she retired officially in 2000. But, when I think of Pleasant, I think of somebody who's truly, one of a kind, a true visionary, honestly. She had many varied careers in her life. She was a teacher, she was a television reporter, she was a writer, she was an entrepreneur, and she's a philanthropist. And although I think at the heart of all of those, I think she would tell you first and foremost, she's an educator. I think she put that idea of learning and always being open to learning, always that everything is learning for good or bad. It's a learning opportunity for a child or for an adult. So I think it was a passion that drove her in all aspects of her life. And then also, honestly, what led her eventually to integrate learning and play for girls at American Girl. So, that is something that is at the heart or the root of what we do. She was all about blending entertainment and education. And that came through, and it was unique, very unique in the toy industry, and really still is today, sort of a unique approach in creating these stories that we have for girls and how she went about doing it. So that's sort of my nutshell answer of like who Pleasant is. But just to give you some background too, I think people are kind of fascinated with knowing a little bit about her childhood and where she grew up, and I can give you a little bit of that too. I know Pleasant personally. She still lives in Madison, Wisconsin with her husband, Jerry Frauchi, of many, many years. That's how she landed in Madison, was through marriage to Jerry. So they're wonderfully thought of community members, incredibly generous to Dane County in Madison, Wisconsin, where we're headquartered. So anyway, they're just great people. But she grew up, she's a Midwesterner at heart. She grew up in a kind of an exclusive northern suburb of Chicago called Bannockburn. And she had by her own account, she had a really wonderful childhood. She loved to read. Books were incredibly important to her. And she also played with dolls. Do I think she would have known at 8 years old that she was going to become this doll maker, this incredible visionary doll maker? No. But those were two passions that she felt strongly about growing up. And that is what sort of drove her entrepreneurship too with this brand. She didn't really want to listen to focus groups or research groups. Had she, we probably wouldn't be here, because the initial focus group that she talked to about for American Girl all told her, no, it's
Really?
not going to, the dolls are too high priced, forget it. And she said, I don't believe them. I know that in my heart, I would have loved this as a girl, and therefore I am moving forward. So not everybody has that kind of, I do think that kind of makes you risk-taking, you know, as an entrepreneur skill. You have to be willing to kind of go at this, whether or not people think it's the right thing for you to do or not. She was really driven by passion, and we can talk about that in a little bit later too. So anyway, she grew up in Chicago. She's the oldest of 3 siblings. She joked that she is an older sibling. She's very bossy, and she will tell you that. She's interesting note, her father was a big ad executive at an agency in Chicago called, it was Leo Burnett at the time, and he eventually became president of Leo Burnett. But what's interesting about that is she does recall him bringing home, you know, after presentations to like the Marlboro Man and Pillsbury and Jolly Green Giant, like she remembers these presentations. She remembers the Campbell's Kids. She remembers, you know, again, just all these really interesting creative moments that her dad brought home for her. It really was like a creative training ground for her in a way. And there was one lesson that she talks about that he taught her, and that great advertising is executed in the detail, or created or executed in the detail. And that I do think that's something that she took to heart for Pleasant Company, which was our original name of the company. She even said that. She's like, you know, I took that to heart. Her father never lived to see the success that she had with Pleasant Company or American Girl, but that is something that she definitely took to heart. So those are just kind of some interesting things. I mentioned she was a teacher, and that really was her first career out of college. She went to Wells College in New York, and started teaching upper elementary in both private and public schools. But she was really dismayed by the lack of creativity in some of the textbooks that she was given. So she started creating her own. So there you go, you know, like somebody who's very entrepreneur-like. So she started creating her own educational materials, but then her career just sort of took her into a variety of different directions, including this TV reporter in San Francisco. I believe she just walked into that audition cold. Like she saw a notice for this job opening and went in there having no experience and got the job.
Excellent. And that in our neck of the woods, no less. So
yeah, right. San Francisco, right. So is it WGN San Francisco? I might have that wrong, but I can't remember the call letter, the station call letters, but did that, and that ended up being, she got a call in that office, a news call. General news call. She just picked up. She happened to be standing there, and it was a gentleman who was pitching a story about educational materials that they were creating in Boston. And they started talking. She started sharing her background. He flew her out, and she began working for that educational publishing company in Boston. So it's just
no kidding.
It's there where she met Valerie Tripp, and some of you, if you're fans of American Girl, you know Valerie Tripp is one of the very first authors that came on board and has written many, many books since those first 3 that came out. She didn't write the first 3, but she did write Molly and some of Samantha's stories, those first 3 characters, Felicity and Josefina, and so many. And so that's where she met Valerie. And then she met Jerry, because he was actually did the printing for that company, and his family owned an old family-run printing company here in Madison, which Jerry took over the decades here, and they fell in love. And she moved to Madison, and then here's fate again. I think fate entered her life many times, but fate, the big thing, was that Jerry had a conference at Colonial Williamsburg, and Pleasant attended. And she was just completely blown away by the experience. She just loved how they brought history to life. She loved how you could walk in the footsteps of these people and really learn and immerse yourself in history and learn something along the way as well. And she just said, you know, one of the big things she was quoted as saying, isn't there just some way that I can make the magic of this place come to life for girls? And that was really the beginning genesis of the idea for American Girl. Second thing was that she was shopping for a present for her niece, And she just couldn't find anything that she liked. She was actually looking for a doll. She wanted a doll that had something important to say or purposeful, and she couldn't find anything. And she said, I can't be the only one. So she combined those two ideas between Colonial Williamsburg and its Living History Museum and this need for a doll that told a story, that taught something, and voila, you have the American Girls collection was born. And that, I know she started, putting together the company and the business in 1985, but really the first catalog, which is another very unique way to launch a toy company, which was unheard of at the time, was to do it via catalog or direct marketing. 500,000 catalogs went in the mail in September of 1986. They had one shot to make it. All their money was, invested into this company, or Pleasant's money was invested into this company. And, a few weeks later, the phones were ringing. They were shipping and packing boxes out of this tiny little warehouse in Madison, Wisconsin here, with trucks and, hard tables with phones on them for their call center. And Christmas came to them that year too, because they made $1 million in sales. So boom, she made it, she did it. And we just never looked back. She certainly never looked back.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of the Pleasant Rowland experience story, if you will. But a really exciting one. I always find it fascinating. I love telling it.
No, absolutely. Thank you for all those details. And that sort of answers my next question, which was about the initial reception of the dolls of the initial release. Yeah. And it sounds like it absolutely blew it out of the water.
Yeah, it did. And I know you also asked me earlier, like what sustained the popularity of the line and things like that. And it was overwhelming. I think they didn't know what to do with the strength of the sales that first year, and it continued to just sort of double, every year for a while, and to the point where she had to move out of that kind of rickety old warehouse in downtown Madison, and where she ended up where we are today, headquartered in Middleton, Wisconsin, which is not too far from it's a bedroom community of Madison, and that's where we are still today. But as far as sustaining popularity and what's done that, I think there's a couple of things. One, and I alluded to this earlier, which is Pleasant started this company from a point of real sincerity. She wanted to target and thought of girls as smart, intelligent, important people. And she talked to them that way. Completely unique in the industry at the time. Most toys were targeted for boys. Not many toys were specifically targeted for girls. There were some gender neutral toys, yo-yos and things like that, but not that many, and none that were educational in nature and had this story component to it. So that's the other thing, really. You can't think about American Girl's success without talking about the books and the stories. That's our intellectual property. That's what makes us different. So that's really where the purpose comes from too. So storytelling with a purpose, what we can share with girls, how we can help them sort of build it. What we say, one of the lines that we say internally is like, we build their strength of character, and we help them become the women that we know they can be today, and those agents of change and positive agents for change, and to really see the world in a way that these characters did, right? And we're able to have an impact on the shaping of our country and the direction that it was going. So Molly did, Felicity did, Addie did. I'm looking at all your dolls in the background, Molly.
Count them off,
Yeah, I know. I love it. Samantha, Kirsten, and you have the original doll box up in the corner. That's so cool.
Oh yes, we sure do. Yeah.
So so that is really kind of one of the big things, and we also, something that we say, and Pleasant really said this a lot. It's not, she didn't coin this phrase or anything, but she did think of the books and these characters as sort of mirrors and windows. So for some girls, they're going to be a mirror or a direct reflection of who they are, what their background, their race, their experience. maybe it's their mom's story, maybe it's their grandmom's story, you know, something like that. And then they're going to be windows where girls can see, you know, get a glimpse of a life that might be very different from their own. And I think Kaya is a great example of that. And Felicity growing up in, you know, the American Revolution. So, you know, those are all the stories that I think impart some really valuable lessons, but that universal quality of growing up hasn't changed, right? That's the distinction of American Girl, that we can show how material culture has changed over the past 250 years or so, but growing up and those things that matter to us, family, friends, love, loss, all of these things are really what shape us as human beings. And that hasn't changed. That was her whole point. Some things change, some things stay the same. And that's what she kind of wants to teach girls. And at the same time, letting them kind of enjoy their childhood for as long as they want to as well. I think there's a lot of things in our culture that push girls to grow up too fast, boys and girls, not just girls. And she wanted to say, you know what, you can slow down, you can enjoy this moment in your life and appreciate it. And then while we're at it, why don't we instill some courage, some self-esteem, and some positive self-talk, so then when you get a little older, you can actually find your voice and make your mark on the world and not be afraid to do that. So that's part of that, you know, that draw. So I do think those things kind of combine really, you know, this sincerity plays, this true desire to make a difference, coupled with these stories that really are meant to build girls up and help them out, make a difference. So made our brand stick around for 35 years. I don't be here if it weren't for those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely think that the books and the stories had a huge impact, because growing up, I didn't even, despite my my desire to do so, I didn't even have one of the dolls, but I had so many Molly books, and I just ate them up, even not having the doll. So I completely, I do think that that's an important aspect of it.
Yeah.
What brought you to American Girl? What attracted you to work there? And then sort of a follow-up question of that is, do you identify with one of the dolls? Do you have a favorite doll that sort of drew you in, whose story you connect with?
Yeah, I do. Well, yeah, and a follow-up question to that is, and what kept you there for 24 years, right? That's a long time to be at a company these days, for sure. And no doubt, I know that. So I work with a lot of women now who grew up with the brand. Mm-hmm. You know, full disclosure, I am too old to have grown up with the brand, not by much, but by a few years. So I'm sad to say that I wasn't a fan turned employee, but we do have actually a lot of those now. And I think that's fun. It's always fun they usually Zoom with their dolls in the background that they grew up with. And a lot of the reporters that I talk to, honestly, are almost, I mean, hands down, I mean, all of them have grown up with American Girl and have some story. It's really fun. I mean, this has been a really interesting year of celebration of 35 years, because we're talking to these women, and I know we get jumping around here a little bit, but you know, I know that these women who grew up with the brand and now are really, you know, taking life by the horns and really doing some cool things with it. So it's been fun for me to talk to them and get to know them a little bit more. So anyway, I am from Wisconsin. I'm a Wisconsin native, and I moved to Madison right after college, and I heard about this publishing company in town that was doing some cool things for girls, and I wanted to find out more. I'm actually an English major, as is Pleasant. I knew that at the time.
There you go. I was wondering if you had a background in education.
No, you know, it's funny. My sister became an English teacher. I just went into English and didn't know what I was going to do. But my liberal arts education led me here, and writing and books have always been a huge draw for me. I was like, I need to find out more about this company. It's so interesting. And I didn't really know a lot about it, because I was older, and I didn't, you know, wasn't targeted by the company at a younger age. So what I discovered was much of what I've already shared with you, that was, you know, this mission-driven company that was led by this woman who's just so passionately and fiercely served these girls and wanted to do good things for them. And I felt I was motivated by that. And I couldn't think of selling anything or pitching anything or being part of a company that didn't have something like that at its heart. So I feel really fortunate to work for a company that I can feel good about what I do day in and day out, and that we are making a difference. We may not be always making a difference, but we're creating fun for girls. We're creating lessons for girls. You know, we're helping them grow up and be smart and talented and use their talents and go for it. And I have 2 girls. I did time when I started American Girl, but certainly, and I wasn't a mom at the time, but I really still thought this was cool. I have 2 girls, 15 and 13, very much into American Girl. Were a little less now. You can imagine we have a lot of items. This is just my office has less stuff than you can imagine. In our bonus room upstairs has a lot of American.
Oh, I'm sure that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where I just couldn't say no once I learned more about it. And they were bringing their public relations duties in-house at the time. And the woman that was leading that at that moment we hit it off, and here I am. So now I'm leading the communications at American Girl. I feel really fortunate. And we've been part of Mattel for a long time too, since 1998. So my entire career has been with Mattel. Not everybody knows that Mattel has been part of American Girl for that long, but it has. So, I've gotten to know so many people in the toy industry, and it's been cool. You asked me about what my favorite dolls are. It's very hard to
dying to know.
be a favorite child, but I narrow it down to 2. I'd have to say Josefina, because she was my very first character that I helped launch when I joined the company. So I joined in January of 97, and we launched her in September of 97.
Okay.
September of 97. And then I love her story. I met Valerie that year because she was writing the story, and I learned so much too. So we have some amazing editors, we have some amazing writers and creative folks in-house. It is pretty cool, so we do a lot of not many publishing houses in the Midwest, right? That's kind of a coastal gig. And so it's interesting to have that here in Madison, Wisconsin. So we have a lot of talented staff, and it's fun to be part of that. So and then my doll that I just, have to, I'm sure you guys aren't going to be surprised, but it's Julie, because I'm Julie, and she's 1974. So that definitely was my time period when I was growing up. And so anyway, I think her stuff is so cool. I wish I had half her cool stuff growing up. I maybe had a maxi dress, I don't know. But my oldest daughter actually was into Julie as well. We read the story together. I did it the old-fashioned way. We read the story together, and then she really wanted Julie. So we have a lot of Julie stuff in there.
Excellent. Well, no shame in picking somebody after yourself. I always loved Molly, so absolutely understand.
I know, you can't help but not, right?
Exactly. Well, like you said, mirrors and windows. So it's definitely a mirror.
Right.
We've sort of touched on it briefly a couple of times, but this year is your 35-year anniversary, American Girl's 35-year anniversary. So what celebrations are happening? What are we doing to celebrate?
Yeah, so we have a lot of fun things happening. So we did sort of an official kickoff in May where we relaunched the 35th anniversary collection dolls. So some of you may have seen. So we reintroduced the first 6 dolls in the collection. So Kirsten, Samantha, Molly are the first 3, followed by Felicity, followed by Addie, followed by Josefina. So it's a collector edition, and you get the doll in its original outfit with the original accessories, plus the first book and with the vintage cover, which you can see behind Molly there. Those are the vintage covers. That's not what the books look like anymore today. We've kind of tried to evolve and change with girls as they grow and as the decades change. But we introduced that line, and it was just overwhelmingly well received. So we're really excited about that. Some of our original fans just loved it. So, and we loved it. So it was really fun and exciting to see that. So that's happening. We have a couple of keepsake books. I actually have one here. This is called Everything I Need to Know I Learned from American Girl. It's just a little keepsake book, and it has different quotes from, it even has the original logo and then just cute sayings from the books, like this one says, families come in all shapes and sizes with Kirsten, and one can even make one of your own with Samantha and her the twins, and Aunt Cornelia marrying Uncle Guard. So that's that story. Don't quiz me on story facts. I'm gonna.
Oh no, I almost did, but I was just curious about Felicity and Colonial Williamsburg and how that seems to be sort of after Pleasant's first.
I know, right? You think she would have done that first? Actually, it's a good question. So where was I? Oh, product for 35th birthday. So yeah, we have birthday dolls and girl outfits within all the doll lines, not just the historical characters, but like Truly Me has a birthday collection this year, and Biddy, and a couple of the other doll lines. We had a partnership with Magnolia Bakery in May, and we did like a special cupcake, and we did a little fun virtual birthday because we're still doing everything virtual pretty much at American Girl. Our stores are open, but less eventing right now, as you know, bringing in big crowds. I guess the big thing that's coming up is in July, we're doing a virtual interactive experience for people on our website. So you can come and experience, like this is not just shopping our e-com store, this is a virtual store experience where it's going to feel like and really feel like act like you're shopping in our New York store. So if you haven't been to the American Girl place in New York, beautiful. It's our newest store. It's in Rockefeller Plaza, right across from the center. And you can, so this virtual experience is all B-roll and things where you can go in, but not only can you go in and kind of see it, you get to shop it. So you can click on things and, shop it as you're in and experiencing the store. There'll be a museum component to it where you can kind of see all the dolls from before and present day. Some of their accessories. It's kind of like vitrines, like rooms that you can go visit. So it's kind of fun. And there'll be a bookstore, and the bookstore will showcase a curated selection of our titles, maybe 50 or so. And then you can get a free chapter out of each book. So you can kind of see it and read it as you go. So that's happening in kind of early July. And then July 10th and 11th, there's this Fun Fest. Virtual Fun Fest, and it's 2 days where guests can come and you get to check out these virtual stores, museums, and things. But you also can go on a scavenger hunt. You can decorate a T-shirt. We're going to have celebrity chats and author discussions and read-alongs and different things like that. So it's really going to be fun for girls and their families to check out. And you can learn more about that at americanworld.com/funfest if you wanted to check it out. But anybody can join up and attend with us. So there's those kinds of things that are happening, and we've got a lot of fun things coming out this fall as well. Some new products, some new characters, and even some partnerships that we're excited about.
Excellent. Yeah, that's actually one of my last questions was if there's plans for somebody new to be released, any teasers you can share, or if there's any other planned re-releases of other discontinued dolls. I know that we had the original 6 are being re-released, but I don't know how.
I don't know about that. I'd say that there's always something happening. There's always something in the hopper at American Girl and in our creative department. We are definitely putting more emphasis on sort of this multicultural, multidimensional nature of girls in America today, really. So I think you're going to be seeing some more diverse additions to our line. Like just today, as a matter of fact, and if I had the book with me, I'd show it to you, but just today we launched a new Smart Girls Guide, which is our advice series to race and inclusion. And it's available for pre-order today, and then it'll be shipped to people at the end of the month. But just a really interesting book for young readers about gaining some racial fluency and normalizing the conversation around race. It's written by this diversity and inclusion expert, Deanna Singh. Love her, she's amazing. And it's a really important book, and I think it's gonna make some difference. It's just kind of slowly getting out there right now. Like I said, we just kind of launched it today. So those kinds of things I think we're very committed to doing and exploring more. But lots coming. It's gonna be fun year.
Thank you so much, Julie. And just to jump here, I want to thank you for your time and your amazing attention to detail when it comes to thinking about the history of American Girl and what an important sort of like I said before, icon it's been for feminism broadly and for women and girls in America. It's just wildly important. So I just have a couple questions that I want to throw out here. And of course,
Sure.
again, to everyone else listening, feel free to toss in anything you'd like. And the first one actually is for Molly, with that great assortment of dolls behind you. You know, if you could maybe talk about those dolls, why they're special, and frankly, why we're here today, right? Why PBA Galleries, a company historically interested in usually more rare book oriented space, is sort of delving into this interesting and fascinating and really complicated history of doll collecting. I think that would be great. So Molly, if you want to talk through those, and Julie, if there's anything you want to add about those particular dolls too, feel free to do it.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be a co-pilot. I love it.
Perfect. Well, actually, one of the most important things about these, then, Julie and I talked a little bit earlier today, actually, about how Pleasant signed a limited number of the first, I believe, first 5 dolls to be released. And these are, behind me, are the number 1 copies of each of those 5 dolls. So I can grab Molly here. She's my favorite, but also she's wearing a little sweater, so she's a little easier to show you. But she has her Pleasant T. Rowland signature here from September of 1986, and the rest of the dolls here have the same. And so we, kind of took this on. We thought, as we were saying, it's an important, even though we largely focus on books, and yes, there are books associated with the dolls, but also it's an important, another one of our focuses is in Americana, and it's sort of a more modern, absolutely an important part of American history. And so that's sort of why we were interested in taking them on. But Julie and I spoke very briefly earlier today just about those initial signatures. I don't know if you want to share anything more about that, or with how many, if you know what the number was or anything like that.
We don't, so this is what I was telling Molly. This is probably where I don't have as much information, but I can tell you, we know that Pleasant signed these dolls. She signed when she did it for the first 5, I believe, so through Addie. I don't know if she signed beyond that. If it would have been Josefina, might have been her last doll. So when I started the company, Josefina was just launching. Oh, Molly and I and our head designer, who's actually been at the company longer than me, met and talked, and she went and did some research. And honestly, we know that she did sign these sequentially, so 1 through 5. And we don't know how many she signed. We don't know where it was cut off. But yeah, it's exciting. She definitely did it. She signed, and that's her signature for sure on that Molly doll. So it's really exciting.
Excellent. Well, it certainly led us down an interesting path into a whole new world. So we've been having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, right.
And I think, as Maggie just said in the chat, they will be up for auction on our July 8th auction if anyone's interested.
Yeah, that's cool. So we talk about that too, where the keepsake quality of American Girl products and the heirloom nature of our products. So really they were meant with that intent. And I do think that's one of the reasons too why people are so interested in the dolls. We always say we're more than a doll company, and we truly are, but I think that fact alone has enhanced what made the doll so special. Because we're more than a doll company, and then we have these experiences that you can do with the doll, and they have personas and they have stories, as we mentioned. So you really create this connection. But for the most part, we do know that people keep these dolls for a long time. They preserve them, they hand them down to their children or their other family and friends. And that's one of the reasons why we actually have a doll hospital too. So we're one of the few doll companies out there where you can send your doll in, either take it to the store and ship it, or send it directly into Middleton. So we have doll doctors that work on these dolls, clean them up, and get them back as close to new as we can. And so that's something that's really cool and unique, I think, about American Girl too. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I was also going to say, this is another question got for you, it strikes me, and I know that American Girl has this sort of designated archivist and is a company that is very much concerned and aware of their own history and their place in history, and what the historical significance of everything that you do is on sort of this bigger scale. My question is, does that sort of I guess self-awareness and almost reflexive awareness come from Pleasant as something passed down to the company culture, or is that something that sort of evolved as the company has grown and I guess expanded into this real force in American history in these last 35 years? But I think the fact that even there is so much attention going into the celebration of this 35 years shows that American Girl is very aware of the role that they're playing in doll collecting history generally, doll history generally, history of toys generally. I mean, it's a significant thing. So is there anything you can share with us about that and how that sort of self-awareness plays into company culture, where it comes from, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I will say that it is born into American Girl. That is really, I think the DNA of American Girl. So when we think of this hallmark of making a difference, of the heirloom nature of our products, the educational value of them, what comes, the whole package, that I think is so, that's what actually one of the things I think is so unique is that, really it's our DNA. And that is what makes American Girl unique in the industry. There are not many toy companies that have that sort of ethos around it, right? And Pleasant started it for sure and instilled it in everyone. Like, one of the things that everybody used to joke about was the guy driving the forklift and the person writing the marketing copy could recite our mission, knows it. And it's not a joke. They do. And they believe it, they feel it. And, it's a little different when the entrepreneur, the founder of the company is no longer there. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, even with Barbie and Ruth Handler and all the different, people that started that company, but she instilled it. And I think it's ingrained so deeply into what we do and into the DNA of the brand that it's you can't lose it. And we, are passionate about keeping her mission going and keeping that light lit for more generations and helping them along. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely, it wasn't something that came along later. That's for sure. It was part of it, always has been, and hopefully always will be.
Oh gosh, well, what a note to end on, Julie. You couldn't have really summed that up any better. And I think this is where we'll close today, unless anyone has any last minute things they want to pop in the chat. But I do want to reiterate again, you know, that's part of why having these original 5 dolls in this auction on July 8th, which by the way is a historic auction for PBA Galleries. Also, it's our first ever Elite Americana auction where we're really trying to collect true sort of gems and important foundational, both I think ephemera and literature from America in the 20th century. And so we're grateful to you for being here and for being part of this webinar series, and for everyone who is able to attend today. Just know we'll have a continuing webinar series throughout the rest of the summer on different topics related to auctions coming up. And if you ever have an interest in a webinar or a particular person you'd like to hear speak, feel free to email us anytime. We're open to shaping the direction of this programming to what's most valuable to you, our viewers. So thank you, Julie, and thank you so much, Molly, for just a tremendous job, and thanks to all who joined us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I know this wasn't maybe your normal gig, but it was fun to talk to you guys all about American Girl. And
thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. We just had a blast. So I hope
all right,
you enjoyed
Molly.
it as well.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.